Hello, I'm April Davila. I am a novelist and certified mindfulness instructor, and I help aspiring authors write more and suffer less. This is First Page Fridays, where we look at somebody's first page, usually a novel, sometimes a short story. I don't know. I haven't even read it yet. And we're going to critique it. We're going to work through it together and look at ways that we can improve it, look at what's working, what could be stronger. And we all get to learn from this wonderful writer who was generous enough to send in their work for us to look at. If you would like to send in your first page, check out the link below in the description. There's a little link where you can send yours in. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get to it. Here, I'm going to shrink myself out of the way here. And I'm just going to start at the top, read it through, and then we'll come back up and edit. I have not read this yet, so if I stumble on some wording, please be gentle with me. And okay, here we go. 85-year-old Gladys Murphy, holding her casserole in one arthritic hand and her cane in the other, was slowly shuffling across the snow in the parking lot of Grace Community Church. This parking lot is going to be the death of me, Gladys muttered as she regained her balance on a patch of snow-covered ice. Pastor Gillard, who was exiting his car, spotted her efforts to remain vertical and limped over to assist her. I'll take the casserole, and you grab my arm. Can I trust you with my scalloped potatoes, Pastor? She asked with a grin. At the last potluck, you ate most of it all by yourself. Nobody makes scalloped potatoes like you, Gladys. That crusty cheese layer on top is a killer. If you were 60 years younger, I'd marry you. I have always said that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Her smile changed to a frown as they circumvented a large pothole covered in ice. This is a disgrace. When the ice melts, our lot will become a mass of potholes and gravel. Somebody is going to do serious damage to their car or have a fall. Okay, there's a lot working with this first page. We get a very good sense of voice. What I don't get a great sense of yet is genre. Now, generally, when someone picks up a book, there are other hints as to genre, like the cover design, the title, things like that. But it never hurts to consider how you can already on the first page start to bring in some tone. Now, this to me, I would, if I had to guess, it's either literary fiction or maybe a cozy, because I can see how the oh, there go my dogs. I could see it's kind of foreboding, right? They're talking about how things are and things it's a killer, things like this, that kind of make me think maybe this is leaning into cozy mystery or thriller. But think about ways that you can kind of emphasize the genre that you're working in. So let's start back up at the top. 85-year-old Gladys Murphy, holding her casserole in one arthritic hand and her cane in the other, was slowly shuffling across the snow in the parking lot of Grace Community Church. I actually think this is a great first sentence. We get a lot of information, but it feels very natural. I totally believe that women, I'm thinking of my mother here, there's no way she's gonna just get herself into church and send some young guy back out to grab the casserole. She's gonna do this. So it speaks to a certain self-sufficiency, maybe a little stubborn streak. And we know, okay, we don't know exactly where we are in the world, but we do know that somewhere where it snows a lot, we know it's winter. We know that this is a woman of faith because where she is headed is the community church. This parking lot is going to be the death of me, Gladys muttered. Talking to yourself is always kind of a mixed bag. It's not, I think this is definitely going to come down to artistic choice, but I'll just share that it's a certain kind of character who's talking to themselves versus just having a thought. If you could put it in italics and make it a thought, like this parking lot, and also is a little stilted. This parking lot will be the death of me, or will. I'm just gonna say this will be the death of me. You could put in italics and just make it a thought. I don't know. I'm going to leave it as dialogue because you are painting a picture of a character who, this is a character who mutters under her breath. Okay, Gladys muttered as she regained her balance on a patch of snow-covered ice. Okay. Since we didn't see her lose her balance, you might say something like, Gladys muttered as she, give us the slip. And as she slipped and regained her balance. And you might even say slipped and fought to regain her balance on a patch of snow-covered ice. Pastor Jill, and then I would go ahead and give us a new paragraph here. We got some weird. That could be on my end, the formatting. Pastor Gillard, who was exiting his car. Exiting his car is a little bit of an awkward phrasing. So you might say who was just, what I'm trying to picture him, like exiting a car. We do exit cars. Who was, you might say just arriving, or who was also crossing the parking lot, or who was, so I was going to say who was locking his car, because that gives the impression of like he just arrived, but that might not be right. Like, I'm in Los Angeles, we lock our cars. There are a lot of places, particularly maybe in a church parking lot, where you might not need to lock the car, so that might not be the right solution. But just let's say who was, I'm going to say also crossing the parking lot, crossing the lot. I'm not wild about that. I think you need to choose like what the right solution is for your character, but just consider that there might be some other options here. And I forgot to call out, I really like the way that words like shuffling, right? Shuffling is so much better than walking, because it gives me this sense of like how this person is walking. And she didn't just say something, she muttered it, right? There's some really good use of verbs here. You want to avoid, I mean, they're unavoidable to some extent, but things like walked, said, of course, is going to be in your dialogue tags, but walked, sat, stood, these boring verbs that you can almost always find a more interesting version of. So things like muttered, shuffling. Okay, so he didn't just see her, he spotted her effort. Like, that gives me this mental image of like, there's a moment of that, like, spotted her efforts to remain vertical and limped over to assist her. Now, limped brings up a question for me that may or may not get answered later. Limped to me is more than just being on ice. That implies injury. So as long as that's what you're going for, that's great. Stick with that. If it's just that he's on ice, limped might not be the best, but I'm going to assume that limp is alluding to something we will learn about the pastor later, that he has some sort of injury that he recovered from. So generally, we've introduced the pastor, and we're going to let him have this line in the same paragraph, and then we jump to, so part of making new paragraphs is cluing the reader into the fact that someone new is talking. So here we're with Pastor Gillard. He spots her, he comes over, he says, "I'll take the casserole, you grab my arm." Then when you do the new paragraph, you're kind of cluing the reader into, she's talking. "Can I trust you with my scalloped potatoes, Pastor?" she asked with a grin. "At the last potluck, you ate most of it all by yourself." You might say them, most of them, it. That's a style thing. My scalloped potatoes, are those an it or a them? You used it, so I'm going to stick with it. Okay, and I like that she's teasing him a little bit, right? Which again speaks to this character. We're getting a really good sense of who this woman is. She's a little sassy. And then he says, "Nobody makes scalloped potatoes like you, Gladys," reinforcing the name, which is great. "That crusty cheese layer on top is a killer. If you were 60 years younger, I'd marry you." Now, I know she's 85, but we're 60 years younger. I wonder how old, it makes me wonder how old the pastor is, right? Because I guess I think of pastors as more middle age, but that's my bias. Especially one who has a limp. I'm not thinking of him as like a 28-year-old, right? So when he's saying, if you were 60 years younger, my mind does the math really quickly of like, oh, he wants to marry a 25-year-old. Okay, so he's young. Or he's not young and he just likes younger women. I don't know. Like, this opened up a lot of math in my head that I don't know that you really want your readers doing. It's worth considering. I don't know how you would rephrase it exactly. Maybe you could just cut it. "The crusty cheese layer on top is a killer." Like this, again, artistic choice. it works fine, but it does open up some questions about like how old is the pastor? How young would he need someone to be to want to marry them? Um, eh, things just to it's just for you to note that that's where my mind went. And that you could cut this bit if you wanted to. I've always said the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Her smile changed to a frown as they circumvented a large pothole covered in ice. This is a disgrace. When the ice melts, our lot will become a mass of potholes and gravel. Somebody's going to do serious damage to their car or have a fall. Okay, so here again, I feel like this is setting the tone a little bit of like dangerous things to come when the ice melts, right? But I wonder if there's some way to get in a hint of what is the story to come. It's very tricky to do on a first page because you don't have that much room. But if you like, instead of talking about the potholes in the ice, unless they play an important role later in the story, you might consider this being a moment of gossip of like, did you hear that Mr. So-and-so went missing? Like if it's a thriller, right? If the story is about like a murder mystery or how is so-and-so doing after the loss of her husband? Like this is real opportunity and this is prime real estate for you to like slip in what is this story ahead. Now, if the story ahead has a lot to do with bad things being discovered when the ice melts, this might be spot on. But if it's about something else, just consider this might be a place to bring that in. Because at this point, your reader's nearing the end of the first page. You need them to turn that page. So think about what question can you pose? What bigger theme of the story might be presented here to really like hook that reader and make them turn the page? And something like, did you hear about Mr. So-and-so was found dead on the toilet? Like, I don't know, maybe that's not the best example, but if there's something you can put in at the end of this page to really like seal the deal and make sure readers keep going, this would be the place to do it. And you've teed it up beautifully because you've created this first page where I have this wonderful. I'm assuming Gladys is our protagonist, right? If Gladys is a side character, you don't necessarily want to open the book with. You always want to open with your main character, or at least one of your main characters. So I'm assuming that we're going to be spending some time with Gladys, and you do a wonderful job of introducing us to her. Even though I don't really know what she looks like yet, I know she's an 85-year-old with some arthritis. She's using a cane. She's moving slowly. She's a good cook. She's living somewhere where it's icy and cold. She's a religious woman. Like we're getting a good amount of detail about her, and we even start to get a little bit of detail about the pastor. I think the one thing this first page could use more of, and again, I'm making assumptions because this might be it, but we need a hint at what is the story to come. What is the big question, the big theme that your characters are going to be exploring or investigating or learning or growing through? You know, this is where you pose that. Other than that, I mean, I think it's a great first page. Let me think. There might be some opportunity here to tell us a little bit about what the pastor looks like. Again, if the pastor has gray hair and he would only marry someone who's 25, that's a specific pastor. If he's like spry and young, which he's not, he has this limp, but that doesn't mean he can't be young. So if you, Pastor Gillard, who was also crossing the lot, I wonder if you could get us just a detail or two about what the pastor looks like. If he's young, you could have her reflect on like such a handsome young man, but that limp, the poor man, like the limp from his accident is such a, this is one of the fun challenges as a writer, is finding really creative ways in just a few words to start to tell the reader who these characters are and what their backgrounds are and what do they care about and what do they look like. So I think that might be something to look at too, is like, because you've given us some good details about Gladys. Could you give us just a detail or two about the pastor aside from the limp that might clue us into how old he is, What does he look like? Is he married? I guess I don't know. I mean, this is something even a married man might say out of, jest. Um, and then I think that's all I got for you on this one. This one's solid. Keep up the good work. And thank you for sending in your page. We can't do this without you, so I appreciate that. And if this was not your page and you'd like to send yours in, don't forget there's a link below in the comments. You can click there, send us your first page, and we'll get to yours too. All right, happy writing, everybody.